Oh, second.
Motion by Barry and a second by Nicole. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item C, a moment of silence to reflect on the business at hand. Item D, the Watoma Area School District Strategic Plan.
Mission statement, create a positive foundation for the success of our children.
Strategic directions, business and community involvement through internships, job shadowing, and mentorship.
Develop marketing of the district and community through branding.
Improve work and people skills.
Develop parental contacts promoting school involvement.
Build productive relationships with the medical field to increase the support and open lines of communication to support students with mental health issues. Item E is recognition of persons wishing to address the board. First on the list is Andy Krieger. Andy, you have 3 minutes. You are up.
First, I just want to thank everybody in the school district for all the work that's gone in. It's incredible. The second point is, obviously, we're all here for what's best for the kids. And, that's never been a question. We get into teaching, we get into coaching, we get into working for school, with schools because of the kids. And that hasn't changed. With the football program, that's always going to be a priority number one. I don't have I want to play football, but I couldn't tell you if I want to play in spring or fall, or I just want to play football. I don't have an answer on which one would you rather play, fall, spring, So I don't have an answer to that. I have concerns that I'd just like to express with both the fall sports. We're in day 3 of youth service already, and the teaching load it's incredible. It's way different than even my first year as a teacher here. Way more overwhelmed than I was my first year. And so when I think about that, I think of having 1, 2, 3, 4 coaches on staff that are coming from school and teaching, and then coming to coach football. Just the load that teaching is bringing this year, and then the load that a COVID football season would bring. I guess I can't fathom, the amount of work and stress that's going to bring. So that's one concern I have. It's just being a teacher and being a coach and trying to control at the same time for fall sport. We started September 7th, and then my concerns for the spring would just be, we move seasons and then we're interfering in the spring sports. Kids would have to choose. So I don't have an answer. I guess I don't have which one I'd rather do. I think they both bring concerns and challenges. But I guess either way, we're going to adapt more commonly. It's what coaches and athletes do. It's what we do. So I guess whatever we're dealt with is what we're going to go with. I just want to express those things. Thank you.
Next person I have on the list is Dave Wyatt.
Last year,
Next one on the list here, Kate Ruffin wants to speak or not. Adam Vaughn, and then it's crossed out. That you're out? Okay. Then after Adam is Alyssa Armstrong.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. Just video and so. I just wanted to you guys the opportunity tonight to allow us to see. I'm going to explore the administration, principals, and everybody. I know that there's so much that's gone into this and such huge decisions. I'm actually here to speak tonight on having resources, specifically with all legislating. I know the whole day and at the same time as far as I think it will be more beneficial for us to really follow these resources. So I'm actually glad it's a little bit different thing also. Our kids is going to be a lot of things in March. They need to sort of almost realize we need to the world. Obviously, that's their health and safety is the most important to everybody, included. We take very cautious a lot of them, which is how we have seen it, how we have practices, how we have needs. But at the end of the day, these kids, especially little kids, these kids are seniors, this is the last time they potentially set up a football field or a little field or whatever it might be. Their mental health is just as important to their physical health is. So I think really take that into consideration when making this decision tonight. And I know we're going to have to do investing for the students and the school and everything else, but that's something that I want to discuss. So thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Moving along, item F, board governance. We're going to get to this now. 1, policy. 1A, the 2020 fall sports season recommendation and decision. Tom?
Brian, can you hear me okay? If I speak? Okay. You guys are okay. So we started this in June, May, June. We started worrying about the July 1 date and what spring sports were going to look like after July 1. We talked about that. And then when July 1 came, things were looking pretty good in the state of Wisconsin. And so we were given some freedom to do some things in July with our athletes. And then July came and things sort of went downhill in the state of Wisconsin. And so then everybody started second guessing, how fall sports would look. Schools started closing or not opening in person. And so we were waiting, and we're really waiting up until tonight, August 24th. And so I have just created what I consider a structure of what we've been living all summer long as far as guidance. We've been told all along that you, health department, liability insurance, legal counsel, that's the level. One way to alleviate all that would be for the WIA to make a decision. Didn't happen. Okay, well they made a decision. They made a decision not to make a decision. And so the decision was to participate is left to the local level. Okay, so here we are. They provided an alternative spring sports schedule. The board has that in front of them. I don't think the spring looks very advantageous for sports because a lot of football and would be soccer is in March. Again, we've been here in March before, and we may not see any of the grass until early April, all right, which is going to create more frustration and more anger in our athletes. Volleyball can be inside, but it's going to be competing with basketball for a while. So now we have double up facilities, and we're making that anticipation that the spring is going to be better than it is now as far as where we're at. The WI also provided in-depth considerations for each sport. The school board has that, your athletic director has that, anybody can get access to that. They give really good detail about each sport and what you would need to do it safely, okay, if you were going to participate in those sports. Fall sports are categorized as football is high risk, boys soccer is moderate risk, girls volleyball is moderate risk, cross country is considered low risk if done like in a dual meet format, but would move up to moderate risk if you increase the number of teams at a meet. A UW-Madison researcher, and the reason I tie this to WIA is because he's been highly connected, he's their poster boy, and I say that with respect for the WIA. He has all kinds of data about the mental health of our students or our student athletes from the spring. Suicide rate, depression rate, anxiety, all right? And we talked about that before, that elevated rate for not participating. The next step is the health department. Last week, the Wisconsin Department of Health came out and said they will not release a statewide statement recommendation relative to athletic programs. This decision will need to be made locally. Okay, I think we've heard that before from the WIA. So that's exactly as it was written by the State Health Department. So Waushara County Department of Health comes in next. I talked to Patty Wolfile, Kerry Praksinski. Patty will not sign off on anything. Don't blame her. The Corporation Counsel from the county, Wazowski, has encouraged them not to sign off on anything because it really holds them to liability if she's the one making the direction. She makes comments, and I respect Patty. I mean, she's in a tough spot. I mean, I feel, some days I feel bad. I feel equally bad for her because when people say, what decision did the state make? Now they all look at Patty because the state's not making a decision. Here's what she stated. Recently, the WI and SEC, it should be SEC, I apologize, released guidelines for fall athletics. Although it is difficult in certain sports to maintain physical distances, the guidelines offer many suggestions to help reduce the transmission of COVID-19. Here's what Patty would say off the record. I don't know how you can play sports and physically distance. Oh, I mean, I agree with that statement. It's virtually impossible to physically distance and play sports. She's saying, hey, the WI has made an effort to say, you can't physical distance, but here's what you can do to try to make this better if you're going to follow through with this. Okay, that's the interpretation. School districts choosing to start sporting events should develop a guide for managing COVID-19 positive cases and contact tracing. Here's what that means. I play football. Barry plays for the Dells. We play the Dells on Friday night. On Sunday, I test positive for COVID-19. The Wisconsin Dells football team has to quarantine for 14 days and all their coaching staff. Our team has to quarantine for 14 days and all of our coaching staff. And luckily I didn't go to school on Monday. But if I had gone to school on Monday and Tuesday and then got tested after the football game, all of Watauga High School would have to be shut down because of contact tracing. So what she's saying is you need to have a plan. You got to have a plan in place. All right? So you got to be able to contact trace, and we're going to get in a little bit of what does that include. But I want you to understand that's the depths of this. And if we're 3 games into the football season and we have to quarantine for 14 days, the football season's over. I mean, we're just going to call it. If you don't play half your season, you can try to play some games in the spring. Coaches should have a roster of players, including parents' name and phone number for the school nurse, along with scheduled events. Again, that's so we can do contact tracing of whoever was at the event. Athletic directors should contact opposing athletic directors and discuss who will be doing contact tracing for their schools and gather phone numbers or emails. Generally, this will be done by a school nurse or local public health official, and then they'll share the information between both counties. Before an event, coaches need to review the daily screening questionnaire with the athletes. And if a coach or athlete is confirmed positive, the school nurse and or public health official will start contact tracing. If any events occur during the highest risk for transmission, the school nurse will contact the opposing team's school nurse or local health official. So that's what athletics will look like if we were to proceed. Reminder, again, I talked to you about the 14 days. I will say one thing that Rusowski did state is that there have been unprecedented number of teenage suicide attempts and mental health situations in Waushara County from March until now. Okay? She said they've never seen the numbers they've seen now. No one succeeded, thankfully, but you can talk to law enforcement, you can talk to whoever you like. Leif Hendrickson talked to me about the amount of days and hours he spent in the hospitals, transporting people to the hospitals from March until now. Okay? Something to weigh in to what the doctor said from UW-Mass. Liability insurance. So we talked to our liability insurance carrier. This is the next step. Right before July 1 about athletics. This is what they said. So Hanover is our insurance company. Acuity is the insurance. They do not want to give any specific guidelines since there are so many variables for all their insurance. However, they do want you to follow any attorney's advice, governmental body's advice, and CDC guidelines the best you can. It is also important to document your plan so you can prove that you did what any prudent district would do to prevent injuries or sickness. By doing this, you reduce your potential negligence in the eyes of the court. So one way you can be prudent is to follow the guidelines of the WIA and to follow the guidelines from the SEC and to follow the guidelines from the health department of what we would have to do for contact tracing. That would be prudent. Not being prudent would just say, we don't have a plan, we're just gonna do the best we can, and here we go. That would be not being prudent. So, based on all the things we have, I think we can show prudence. Legal counsel, who is Tony Rennie for us, just got me his report today. And I'll just sort of, you guys, the board has this. I wasn't sure if you want me to share with everybody. Number one point, just to interpret that, is Tony is saying WI sort of said, it's on you guys. That's number one. Number two is the state of Wisconsin said, it's on you guys. So that's point number two for Tony, just saying, he's just giving a summary of what was said. Something to keep in mind, though, is that there still may be an order. And if an order takes place, he believes it will not be scrutinized at all by the legislators or the court of law. And I guess by that is Andrea Palm's order stayed last spring when Governor Evers' safer home order got repealed. He believes that if someone like Andrea Palm puts out an order saying all schools are closed, or like Dane County just did, all schools are closed 3rd grade through 12, that no one will touch them or go after them. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but that's just, Tony probably hears a lot more things than we hear. Again, he put on number 3, just a reminder that Dane County and Madison, City of Madison, just jointly shut down all private and public schools 3rd through 12th grade, including athletics. Number 4, he put, albeit Waushara County Department of Health has not issued a directive, just as Dane County has, they are strongly considering recommending against in-person instruction, like we're doing at the beginning of the year. And should any health department follow what Dane County did, the school district would have to follow what the health department said. My understanding, talking to Patty, I don't think that's going to occur. In fact, Waushara, I think I shared with the board, Waushara County sent out their own metrics of what you would have to not go in person, and we haven't even been close to those metrics yet. Point 5 is that, again, as Waushara County Department of Health is recommending against in-person instruction in athletics, this should, even though it's a recommendation, you shouldn't dismiss a recommendation. However, should be considered by the district when it looks at potential liability as we move forward to in-person instruction in athletics, and that any family, if they could prove that a child were to get COVID-19, could maintain a lawsuit against the district. But maintaining the lawsuit does not mean they would prevail in the lawsuit if we could show that we have reasonable steps to try to rectify the mitigation of the COVID virus in in-person instruction and athletics. So again, that goes to, do we have strategies in place, or are we just throwing caution to the wind and saying, hey, kids, just do what you want? All right, that'd be negligence. So again, that's just, Tony's a lawyer, he's giving us legal advice. It says right here, number 6, accordingly, if the district is going to proceed with in-person instruction in athletics, the district must be careful to implement and require as many precautions as possible to safeguard against students contracting and spreading COVID-19. There should be a plan in place to put, and there most likely already is, we do have a plan in place. He talks about waivers, but if you read sort of the middle, he said, however, waivers are not going to be enforceable against the athletes because they're minors, and albeit parents may sign their rights away to litigate, parents arguably cannot sign waivers away to the rights of their children. So what he's saying is you can do waivers if it makes you feel good, but in a court of law, a waiver is really not going to hold a lot of weight, so he doesn't really recommend doing waivers. Okay. South Central Conference, the guidelines, like some of you have seen the guidelines, that was created by the athletic directors. Were you principals involved in that at all? The high school principals and the athletic directors were involved in the South Central Conference. Right now, the last time I talked to the superintendent of the South Central Conference, every school in the South Central Conference is all in. I think I probably created the most doubt by asking them questions about, oh, have you talked to your lawyer, have you talked to your insurance company? And I think they're starting to do that, but I still think they're all in. At the high school level at this time, yeah, they're all in. Jim Rochelle talked to the middle school athletic directors. I will say in our conference, they're just sort of like, we don't really care if the middle school goes. We're more worried about the high school, is what the other conference schools are going. My recommendation would be if we move forward, I think we should move the middle school forward also. That's, I think, what's fair for the high school is fair for the middle school. Transportation considerations need to be done at each school because our bus routes are going to be later. We have no sub-bus drivers. We're going to have to wait until our buses get back before we can go to athletic events. That's going to create some issues for transportation, especially outdoor events when we don't have lights like in soccer. So things we're going to have to think through. Some other things I would ask the board just to keep in mind is this will not look like any other athletic season. I am not in favor of going anywhere outside the conference and anywhere local. So we used to play Cooley Christian in lacrosse and soccer. I would not approve that. I'm opposed to that. Westfield wanted to run against us and they wanted to bring Rio up. No way. I want to stick local. I want to stick to big conference. If we're going to make this commitment, I feel like then we're not being prudent anymore. When we're like, okay, let's bring in some schools from around the Dane County area, let's bring in some schools from here. I feel like it needs to be local and it needs to be within our conference, if that's what we're going to do. And that's my opinion. I'm just sharing that opinion with you. Some other things to think about, again, a state mandate can occur anytime. We wouldn't have to follow that state mandate. And just one other thing to keep in mind, as we move forward, there's also another group of parents and another group of people of non-athletes who want their kids to be at school. They could see us allowing athletics as being putting their child's education at risk by potentially bringing situations back that in their eyes would not need to be done. So again, just things to keep in mind. If I had to rate on the back page here, if I had to rate these situations, I think the highest risk, I think this is not rocket science, but the highest risk is to do all sports as scheduled, local and within the conference, follow WIA considerations, SEC guidelines, and local health department guidance. Next level of risk, I think, is move high school, middle school football to spring and continue all their fall sports, again, following those guidelines. Lower level of risk, keep cross country and dual meet status, have the other sports all go to spring. And the lowest risk possible is to move all sports to spring. So to me, it's a continuum of high risk to low risk. And that's what we're here today. So I told you I'd bring you back as much factual information and data that I could. And that's from the Health Department, WIA, our lawyer, our liability insurance company, everybody that I could gather information from and brought it to you.
Thank you, Tom. I think this information you shared tonight is obviously very thorough, covers all the points. I think as Alyssa pointed out there, there's a lot of work that's went into this, specifically with you and other people that are in the room. And we've continually, as a board, talked about let's just wait. Let's wait till we get closer to school because 11 things are going to change tomorrow and 12 are going to change the next day. Well, here we are. School's getting ready to start. Coaches are all lined up here, waiting to figure out what we're going to do. So, there hasn't been a lot of discussion about this. We knew this information was coming. I'm a little bit surprised that there hasn't been a health department recommendation either at the county level or the state level. And like you said, maybe it's still coming. But the fact that we don't have one, in light of that, I would like to make a motion to begin the fall athletics on the dates that were previously agreed on and ask admin to use their discretion on the schedule when it comes to locals and conference. And that's something that you and Adam and the rest of the team, I guess, has to work out. But I'd just like to make that motion to at least get it on the table and see where we go with discussion here.
Second.
So there's a motion and a second. Further discussion.
I just want to bring up something that Jim brought to me, and again, just so coaches, oftentimes we have small kids and people next to the program. I just want to refer back. This is going to look different than it ever has before. We want to reduce as many contacts as possible. So I think it's awesome when third graders and fourth graders can come to an event, but now we've just increased contacts at another school. So if we're going to do this, it needs to be high school only or middle school only when we're at events and try to reduce the breadth of the contacts that we have. We're going to see it in our crowds, the SEC guidelines and things like that. But I just wanted, Jeanette, I thought that was an excellent point that Jeanette brought up of just trying to reduce as many contacts as possible. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay. What about other discussion?
I think that, I think about three things for kids: social, emotional, educational, and I just think we have to have all three. My heart goes to the parents that, maybe don't have the kids in sports and think that we're maybe putting their students at risk because they're coming back to school. But Tom, when you mentioned some things, about the suicide and the attempted suicide rate, we can't ignore that. I just feel these kids need some sort of normalcy, and I'm one that's not going to live in the what if. Let's give it a try. You're going to be smart. We trust you. I trust all of our admin staff and our coaches. I just feel we have to go forward with some of that instead of living in the back and waiting. We waited. Let's go forward.
Just a question of clarification on the report you had out of Madison there about the suicide levels. Was that specific to athletes or just students?
It was the spring athletes. They did that WIA
It was all
survey.
athletes.
Yeah. He didn't have any historical data on the suicides. He did have it on anxiety, and it was like 3.5 times higher depression and anxiety than it had ever been in the past.
Yeah, and I think that's my point. Is I think the anxiety piece is affecting everybody, not just the kids that are playing the sports, right? So, you know, we're in a position here. It sounds like we're going to move in this direction, but if we keep that in mind, that if we find out that sports is going to be the toughest hurdle for us to clear to keep the kids in school, we may have another decision down the road here. But you know, the motion and the second are there to begin.
Tom, just one point here. This goes into a 14-day quarantine for entire team, coaching staff, entire school. If somebody tests positive and went to school, that's in direct contradiction to, I think, the guidance that we just got in our email from the health department that basically said that a sibling of a positive case doesn't even have to stay home.
Yeah,
That's correct. If they're not showing symptoms.
Okay,
So what they're saying in this situation is they're not going to be able to tell who's a contact.
so how come in this case they would have to quarantine, but in the case of even a sibling who's definitely had,
If it wasn't a sibling who had COVID-19, it was so the previous was if you went home ill, all your siblings had to go home also. But now if you go home ill and you don't and your sibling doesn't have symptoms, they can come back to school. So it's not a positive COVID test, it's just symptoms.
so if there's a positive COVID test in the school, we're going to shut it down?
If there's a positive COVID test, the football, look, I'm just use football because that, you know, everybody's sort of on each other. The team would have to have 14-day quarantine. If they had been back into school after that before the test had been done, we would have to go back to contact trace and see where they're at. I mean, and if we can't,
So what if they, so again, we're lumping everybody in the football team as having close contact then. So if in a science lab a kid had COVID, a positive COVID test,
Yeah.
3 days after that lab occurred,
yeah,
we
so
shut
you
the whole
would
school
want
down?
all the people that were around him in the lab, and then each class, how many people were in contact. Yeah.
So you contact trace from, so you'd assume everybody was positive on the football team, or you would just contact trace the positive case and then quarantine the football team?
Yeah, so if one person had COVID-19, they feel like they couldn't say you, and you were the only people within a certain distance of that person.
Fine, I get that for the football team, but then if that kid had been to school, the one positive test, it seems.
We're not shutting the whole school down. This says if one
It depends
student
if
has
the kid who was tested positive for COVID, if he had been back in school for a few days, you know, even one day, and then tested the next day and tested positive, there's a chance the whole school may have to be shut down.
A chance.
A chance, yeah. I mean, again, it would depend on contacts and really what the health department tells us is before we got. You know, the kids in the hallway, you know, I mean, again, who were you by? How long were you by this for?
No, I understand.
No, I know. I hope. It all seems.
It just seems it seems a lot heavier-handed than the guidance, frankly, that we received via email a couple of days ago.
Again, that was just simple, so that wasn't not a positive test.
Okay.
We thought if somebody went home initially, if somebody went home ill, they had to stay home for 10 days, and all their siblings had to stay home for 10 days. They changed that to just the child with symptoms testing home for 10 days. If the other siblings don't have symptoms, they can come back to school. That's what just changed recently. But again, what I'm hearing you say is, you know, we're talking athletics, but this literally could happen with anything. You know, I mean, someone could be at a get-together on Sunday, come back in on Tuesday, and you know, it shuts everything down. Or, you know, I think the gentleman from UW-Madison was like trying to weigh this out. You know, what's more dangerous? You know, taking a chance with potentially a COVID risk or the mental health risk is what he's trying to say. Let's weigh it out. And the physical health piece of exercising. My doctor, I had a doctor's appointment today. My doctor said, we've never seen so many cases of blood clots ever since March because people are sedentary. Never seen as many cases of blood clots in a row. So I thought that was intriguing.
I'll just speak for the record that I support the athletics coming back. Unfortunately, we live in a time where politics and policies seem to run our lives. And I think in this case, COVID-19 is certainly an issue we have to be aware of. But I think the politics and the policies that we're dealing with are driving this beyond a rational level. Factual statement was made through pediatrics that your child is more likely to die from influenza, 6 times more likely to die from influenza right now than COVID-19. But we're not afraid of the influenza. We treat it, we meet it, we do what we need to make sure our children are safe. I think, unfortunately, politics are running our life. I think in this case, it's obviously running our life, and I just would recommend normalcy for our kids. They deserve it. If somebody gets sick, we're prepared to meet that and do what we have to help them with our medical fields and what we have available for hospitals. There's no reason why we can't treat and attack it if we have the issue. But we need to get these kids back in school, normalcy, and do what we need to be safe. But we got to get back to a normal life for these kids, period.
And I guess I would just ask, as we move forward, and I know you will be, just help people be patient. I mean, because we don't know how this is going to roller coaster or what's going to happen, but we're just going to keep trying to make the best decisions, keep communicating like we have been all along, and just keep going after it. I mean, I don't have any intent of giving up. We may have some knockdowns, but we're just going to keep fighting through it.
I mean, nothing changes. We just have to take a decision,
Yep.
right? Because it's time.
Yep.
If we choose to have, if this motion carries, and we end up shutting down, say, the football season altogether, what can we move that to the spring?
Yeah, if we don't play more than 50% of our games, we can finish in the games this spring. And as Adam will say, it'll be just trying to find people to play. It depends who else is playing this spring, who wants to play us.
And athletes. Honestly.
Yeah, because there's going to be overlapping because they want to play baseball.
I understand. I just didn't want to say, okay, if we do this now and we play one game and they get shut down, or volleyball, or whatever, are we, coming off our nose to spite our face here?
And I did send a flyer off to Adam and Jen today and the middle school team. It's just a nice flyer. I don't want to be too preachy, but it's really to the kids and families are like, hey, if you want to play athletics, we may, for this fall, we just have to close up our social circles a little bit and let's just tighten them up so we're not out doing things and taking risks that could be brought back in that will stop us doing this. So again, I don't like telling people what to do, but it's, if we want to move forward with this, we want to do this, we got to sort of tighten things up a little bit. Simple as that. And they have that, Adam can share that with the coaches, and we can get that out to the athletes. Anything else from you guys?
Any other discussion?
That was my main concern, because when we looked at what they told us and everything, I was just more concerned about having the little kids there. You always have a little kid that helps with the football or little kids, so that was one of my concerns, is we just keep it high school kids. Coaches can't have their kids there. I just want to keep it tight. I guess that would be my goal.
And there'll be some unhappy people, based on the SEC guidelines. Students aren't going to be able to be there. It's going to be 2 tickets per athlete, and that's what will be in the stands, and it's going to be spacing and all that stuff. So it's really about the kids playing. It's not really going to. It's the same reason the baseball ratings are down and NBA ratings are down. It's different without the crowd there. So it's going to be different. But our focus is to have the athletes play.
Is that going to be reevaluated every season, Jen or Adam? Is that going to be reevaluated that we have in the fall? We'll maybe reconsider, 4 tickets, or we'll whatever.
We'll probably evaluate as much about it. If it's going to be tough, you give 2 tickets to your parents, what are you going to do with kids? Sessions, not even sessions at all, something like that. So we talked that after 2 weeks, we'll re-meet again just to say what's going on, what's not going on. What that developed,
obviously every season, we change basketball rules and we'll look a lot different. Being indoors and not being able to separate much.
Yes, it's frustrating with the two-ticket for an individual, because you have family groups that obviously are exposed to each other consistently, that, I have the 6 foot, I would think that everybody would understand the 6 foot and be mindful of that, but it's tough with just the 2 tickets. You want you want to support your student athlete and be there for them, and that's frustrating not only for you, but it's frustrating for the child too, the student athlete. So.
And we're meeting on Wednesday with all the superintendents, the ADs, and the principals. It's something we could bring back up again like outdoors maybe.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, we certainly have room in the bleachers, even before this situation at games in recent years, where I don't see where if people just exercise that 6 foot, it wouldn't be an issue.
My only fear is when we do that is we open the can of worms for football, then we start to get it on like football, like volleyball, cross country.
Football's outside.
I completely understand that.
Well, it's a simple answer, right?
Trying to rationale that to people in a COVID season, you're already taking away almost everything. You're taking away the kids, it's worth fighting if that's the direction to go, but I just know, like even when this one at cross country, they decided that you don't have to wear a mask outside, they're letting as many people in as they want, but even with the gate right there, we'll probably have to make adjustments on how with Lucerne, but it's just when we open that up, sometimes it's.
Well, and I think the CWC, which was what Wild Roses, I think they went no fans at all. The last time is that what you heard? I don't know, Steve. Yeah, it was the last time I heard they went no one. Athletes only.
Outdoor sports I can understand, that'd be an easy decision for me. Inside, obviously, we talk about addressing that with the additional filtration, additional airflow. That's a whole different when you're within a facility, but outdoors, I can understand there being a different parameter there.
We can bring it up.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Item G, board suggested future agenda items for our monthly meeting on September 14th, 2020 over at Parkside. Anything to add to the agenda at this point? If not, please advise prior to that. And item H, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Second.